Hello. Hey guys, yeah, in case you're thinking of not turning on your video, this would be your cue to do it. Nice Parth, I love that background, man. I want to steal it now for the new apartment that I'm in. If you guys don't know, this guy Parth, he didn't steal it. He took the main banner that we co-created at Life Plugin Summit that says the purpose of life is play. And we couldn't take it at that time, but now next time I come to India, I'm going to try to take it. It would be yeah, it would be cool if you guys can turn on your video so we can see each other. Let me see this. Set this up. Okay. Right. Well, first of all, welcome to the first week live integration call. And yeah, I think every time we do this, even at Life Plugin Summit or with the online batches, I know particularly on day 5 is the day that I'm the most nervous. The entire team is the most nervous to see like how far are you guys willing to push yourselves, because it really depends on you. And I'm humbled to see the kind of work that you guys did, the way you showed up with as much honesty as you can. I really appreciate it. So many messages on the group. So if you guys haven't seen it, you guys should check them out. And also want to let you know, think the way this program is designed, I would get a lot of, some of the things that you're sharing are deeply personal or deeply private, or you think that are deeply private, which is a talk. Maybe it will come in the next 2 weeks or something. But we receive them over email or private WhatsApp. I think it's a bit difficult to address them individually for me or even for Wendy. So if there's a delay in response, or if you just choose to reply on the group, I hope you forgive us, since you learned forgiveness recently. So it should be easy for you, right? So welcome, and it's really good to see you guys. I'm just gonna, there were a lot of questions that we received, so I've put a note of them in my notepad here. There's some of them I have grouped together in a way that, a lot of people ask the same question in different vocabulary. So I'll try to answer them to the best of my ability. And in case there is still something left, we have this chat, or also the Facebook group, the WhatsApp group. But I'm sensing that this group enjoys WhatsApp communication more than Facebook. It's clearly visible. So we'll keep the conversations there. The only way Facebook helps is, if someone asks the question, you don't have to repeat it. And WhatsApp is designed to, just chat should disappear. And on Facebook, you can keep like a common thread, and you can just follow that. So that was the intention behind it. Seems like it doesn't land with you. So we'll do it mostly on WhatsApp. And let's see, there's more people joining in. That's cool. And also, a cool thing is a bunch of you already asked. I'm answering the questions which are not directly program related, but they are still attached to it. Like, can someone still join this program in 1 weekend? So the answer to that is no, because as you know, the way you guys are going through the journey, it's not just about the content, but daily exercise sharing, daily Q&A with me, and also with you guys. Like, you're also uplifting each other, which often gets missed. If you can also choose to just give in your logins to anyone you care about, but the essence and the depth of transformation would not be the same, right? And this is why we don't allow people to join in the middle of the journey, right? So wouldn't be possible. Again, if you, some people asked if you want to do one-on-one coaching. Also, I think we just closed the entire batch last time. Even if there will be a slot for one person, which we launch end of September. So for that, if you are interested, I would suggest just go through the whole program, see if there is still a need. And if you still think there is something that you would benefit a lot from one-to-one coaching, just write an email to Wendy and we'll see what we can do and how soon we can do it. Cool? Okay, so good to see you guys. And all the people who are not turning on the video also, good to see your pictures. Jessica, I was looking forward to seeing you. Okay, let's go to a few questions. I think Aditi asked, to the tune of stuck emotions resurface even after forgiveness process. Am I doing it wrong? Did anybody? So I'm watching the video so that we can have some sort of real interaction because I'm itching for it, right? So if I ask you something, just, if I ask you, raise your hand if you also felt it, there's, after you went through the whole process, there's still some emotions that you think are left, which are not cleared. Did anybody feel that? Okay. Okay, a few hands up. If you're seeing the grid, you may see a few people, right? The reason for that is that it's like having an addiction. Is anybody who's ever had any addiction? I know Satvik used to be a smoker in the past. So was I, right? We used to be smokers together, right? Anybody who breaks an addiction, right? It doesn't happen. Okay, that's it. Today it's over, and I've cleared everything, right? Sometimes that emotion, that energy gets stuck, especially because if something that we've developed for over extended period of time. Okay, Jessica, you're forgiven. Okay, so if something that we've been engaged in over an extended period of time, it becomes extremely difficult for us to change it overnight, right? But the beauty of that is to understand, until this moment, it was in my darkness, it was unconsciously controlling my behavior. The moment you put light on your darkness, you know what it does? There's still something there and you weren't paying attention to it, but suddenly you put your light on it, it's not as scary anymore, right? Because you put your vocabulary to it, you put your intention to it. And the power of this group, you also see more people. It wasn't just one story, right? This is the common pattern that we see. Every time people would message me personally because they think it's the most private thing that only they experience, right? And it was the same for me. But, Stephen Covey said it best, what's personal is often the most general. And and this is why anybody who is a teacher, speaker, the more honest, authentic stories that you share, the more connected the other person is to you if you're teaching it. And the reason for that is that we all, to a different degree, have experienced the same things. Right? So we need to be mindful of it and be gentle with ourselves. So if there's still emotions left, how to act on it is to repeat this process, because we've been addicted to a specific form of behavior in the past, right? Holding on, reinforcing our self-image every single time something bad happens, or a behavior, in an example of, hey, you're not confident, you're not good enough when you're speaking in front of people. This was my limiting belief, right? But this was also this is my gift wrapped in sandpaper, right? Which is why I do what I do. Part of the reason for that is this, right? This was one of my biggest limiting beliefs. And when you have a limiting belief, your brain goes like this. It's a highly sophisticated machine. And whatever program you've given it inside, it starts to look for everything that is in your environment, which is in exact alignment to what you believe about yourself. The reason why that is important is and there's a few people who said that, hey, I have, with my ability to speak, I feel that I'm not good enough. How do I expand that ability, right? In every single person on this call, I believe it, even if maybe one or two people may not, right? Every single one person on this call has had a moment where you felt that you were at your peak, the most confident, you said everything that you intended to speak, you left a really good impression on the person you were communicating with, right? Every single person has had that at least once in their life. The problem is we don't remember it, right? The problem is because it's not aligned with our self-image. So, my wife, Celia, had one of those personas. She would receive a compliment and 3 seconds later, she would have amnesia. Like she would have no recollection of it, right? Because if it's not aligned with your self-image, right, it doesn't stick. And the moment something bad happens, you do something bad, let's say in the example of public speaking, every time you say something which is not ideal, and immediately your brain goes, see, you're not good enough. See, I told you the other person is better. See, you shouldn't be doing this as a profession. These markers start to show up. Or if you believe internally that you're ugly, every time someone would give you a compliment, it wouldn't land with you for long, right? And on the opposite side, even if you get a hint that somebody's thinking that you're not as pretty or beautiful, right? Your brain will be like all engines running, see, bells ringing and saying, hey, see another proof. Let's acknowledge it. Let's bring it to ourselves, right? That's the addiction. And what we want to do is bring consciousness to it. That's the first step, right? Bringing consciousness to, this is the behavior. Then the second step is going deeper. So where is that incident where I gave meaning to my self-image that this is who I am? And then our job is to let go of that experience through. One of the tools is through forgiveness, right? And if it shows up again, all we need to do is relax into it, breathe into it. And oftentimes, this is Panache Desai, who says that he's incredibly remarkable spiritual teacher. If you don't know him, his latest book that is called You Are Enough, the title doesn't do justice to how deep the book is, but it's fascinating. Right? He's an incredible teacher. And the way he teaches, every time these stuck emotion they surface, that's a good news, because oftentimes when things are in our subconscious, we just get a trigger, right? And different people talked about, how do I deal with triggers that show up again? Or how do I still have these residual negative emotions which are surfacing up? Am I doing it wrong? No. What happens is that traditionally our behavior is that when these negative emotions come up, we try to suppress them down, right? They're trying to surface and they're trying to get released through our body, right? If you really want to go deeper into, the chakras, something comes from India, the 7 chakras in our body. Now that is basically our subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is not in our head. Our subconscious mind is spread ideally in those 7 energy centers. That's how Joe Dispenza explains it. These are different centers in our body that function autonomously, right? And what is happening is that when you're stuck emotion, it's trying to surface again. It's trying to get released again, right? It's the energy that is getting stuck in your body. When your negative emotions are popping up, they're trying to get released. They're trying to surface. They have to surface before they can get released, right? So when they are trying to surface, our job is not to suppress them down, but simply relax into it, right? It's to go towards the pain. It's to shine light in the darkness and just walk towards it, because the solution is there, right? Rumi said it, I think. The cure for the pain is inside the pain, right? So the goal is not to hide it, right? The goal is to see, okay, I will sit with it until I fall in love with it, right? If you can, one can develop this ability that every time this is showing up, every time any trigger is showing up, we say, I will sit with it, relax and breathe into it until I fall in love with it. It slowly starts to, you can go deep into the experience, but if you put light into it, it becomes less of a monster. And the more we practice it, the easier it becomes. So I hope that answers the question. And another person who asked a question along the similar lines was like, how do I still get triggered. I still get triggered a lot. Like, how do I manage that? How do I manage my, I don't want to get triggered. Like, does anybody, just raise your hands if you have this question as well. So I see, like, how many times we get triggered and I wish I shouldn't get triggered, right? So when we are thinking about triggers, by the end of this program, the intention for this program is this, right? And this is what I'm curious to see 6 months down the line. I don't know if you've heard me speak before or seen me at Life Plugin. I'm for certain that the minimum that this program will do is to inspire you. I know that. By now, we've done this enough, we've run the cycle enough that we know you'll be inspired. And you'll give amazing case studies. We'll have them, right? But what I'm interested in is not the case study at the end of those 21 days, but what I'm more interested in is what you give as a case study 6 months down the line, because that's a mark of real change. This is why, like, people from Life Plugin Summit, I already know them. I speak to them by name here, because I truly stalk them, because in between the 6 months that we do our Life Plugin Summits in, we see what are the changes people are experiencing in that period. It's not the event, right? Because event is just like a transformational experience, right? It's like a great experience, but real transformation happens when you have the event, plus you integrate that event in a meaningful way, right? So after this 21 days, my intention is that every single time, sometime in the future, the goal needs to be every single time you get triggered, you need to get excited. So I will say that again, every single time you feel a trigger inside, you will get excited. This is amazing, because what we are getting triggered in our external environment, it's not the other person, right? It's something within us. A trigger reflects something within us that we haven't really acknowledged, right? We're all mirrors for each other. We're just reflecting good or bad behaviors, and we trigger each other by a certain behavior, right? This is why, the common pattern is, and we hear that a lot for, I know there's one person, I wouldn't name, like, about, hey, my relationship, I often find myself in the same sort of relationship, or on the tune of, I often find myself in a relationship which is like a bit toxic or a bit not enjoyable, and I break up, and then I say, I will respect myself, and then I often find myself in, again, the same sort of relationship, right? The problem is not the relationship, the problem is something inside of us that we haven't yet released, right? Is one of my friends told me this funny analogy. She said that, if you go to every room and it smells like shit, you should check your shoes, right? And that's what we need to start. That's the philosophy we need to start building upon, right? When we are getting triggered, it's a behavior inside of us that is triggering us, right? And the point of personal mastery is to take radical self-accountability, right? And that means some things we may not be able to control in our life, and that's totally fine, right? But the mindset that we need to have is not that the other person is triggering me. It's hard. We are still human, right? Myself included. Like, no matter how much I can talk about it, it's difficult for me too. But it's way easier than it was 12 years ago for me, right? And it's to understand that if we are getting triggered, it's something that is within us, a meaning that we give that makes a certain behavior unacceptable, right? Or we give them an opportunity to treat us a certain way because we treat ourselves a certain way, right? So it's always bringing it back to what can I release? How can I shift, right? So and in the beginning, it's hard. In the beginning, it's like trying to learn a new instrument, right? It's difficult, right? But slowly and slowly you start getting better at it. If you are in love with your growth, right? Every time you get triggered, you will start getting excited. Maybe not in that moment, maybe a day later, maybe the next day when you're meditating, when you're thinking about, I should forgive that person, but then you'll go back inward saying, okay, it has nothing to do with the person, right? Sometimes we experience something really, really traumatic, right? People have experienced some things. It's hard to conceptualize sometimes for ourselves. And we've had people in our physical events who have gone on stage and shared things like that. Their husband was murdered in front of them and that they died in her lap, right? So the act of forgiveness, finding forgiveness, is not hard. People do find it. And when you do, it's like, it's setting a prisoner free, as I said, and realizing that the prisoner is yourself, right? So bringing every single thing to ourselves and taking full accountability for it, that's the fundamental principle behind personal mastery. And already a lot of people ask, like, hey, I remember Satvik was one of them, said, I understand this process is good, but how do I continue this momentum after this program ends, right? And it's like, perfect question. That's exactly why we just finished week 1, right? There's this week 2 and week 3, which is going to build upon the process that by the end of it, by the time you leave, right, you'll be exposed to many tools. You'll be exposed to principles from NLP, from hypnosis, from using positive affirmations, visualization, and a bunch of other tools, right? And by the end of it, you see what speak to you the most, you add them to your toolkit, and you use them as your own coaching blueprint, right? And we teach you how that happens. One second. And so personal mastery, the way I teach it with Life Plugin, at least, it has 2 sides of it. Think about it as a yin and the yang, right? And this is what week 2 is about. Week 2 is about understanding what is this cycle. The yin, or the yang, which is the masculine process, somebody corrected me recently, is, think of it as tending your garden. Buddhist philosophy speaks a lot about, looking at our life and doing things the way we lead our life as tending our garden. You don't just clean your garden once and say, done, right? Finished, my garden should look beautiful forever and ever, right? It's a constant and never-ending process. And one part of the process is to seeing that, oh, there's some weeds, unwanted weeds in the garden. And when you find them, what you have to do is uproot them, right? And it takes a lot of energy. It creates holes in your garden, and because it's been deeply rooted, right? And it's unwanted. So first week was to identify what are the weeds in your garden, and you uproot them. And when you uproot them, this is where, there's emotional release, right? This is where the stuck energy starts to flow again. It starts to flow through your chakras or through your subconscious mind, whichever vocabulary speaks to you, right? It starts to flow again. You uproot that weeds. Do you have to do that every single time? No. Do you have to do it just once and done? Also no, right? But every time you see the weeds, you have to uproot them. This process is done every time you see them, every time you find a new trigger, every time you notice there's another repeated struggle that I'm trying to break through, right? Every time there's a repeated struggle, that's a telltale sign of there's a limiting belief that we've been carrying that hasn't been addressed yet, right? So every time you find that, then you practice forgiveness, depending on how deep that belief, that experience you've experienced in the past has. Then maybe about a week, about 2 weeks, right? You use that process to uproot that weed and let it go. The next part, this is the yang process, right? You see the weed in your garden and you uproot them, which has a lot of energy release, and your garden starts to look better slightly. Now you only have wanted things, and there's some holes that you need to fill. And then this is where you plant the right seeds of the fruits that you want to grow, the flowers that you want to grow, or the trees that you want to grow, right? So you plant those seeds, and that's what week 2 is about. Week 2 is about the yin process, which is how do you plant the right seeds? How do you consciously plant the beliefs that are in alignment with the goals that are meaningful to you? Right? Your goals would be different from mine. And whichever area that you're trying to expand, how do you plant the right seeds? And planting the right seeds is easy. Just plant the seed, put it down, but the nurturing happens daily. Right? This is why we will build a daily habit. You have to water the plants, water the ground on a consistent basis. This is the part of the process which is more consistent, right? So the first part of the process is hard, but you don't do it as much, maybe 20 to 25% of the overall cycle. The second part, which is reprogramming, consciously planting the right beliefs and constantly doing it, because our subconscious mind is habitual, right? Just like nurturing our garden, you have to do it every single day, right? So that is what the week 2 is about. So week 1, we learned once we identify something that is holding us back, how do we release it? Week 2 is about what do we replace it with? And how do we consciously engineer our self-image? Right? So these are the tools that we'll be describing and learning in week 2. So the fact that it's by design, you should be left with these questions. Hey, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do in week 2? How do I continue this practice? Right? Because when you are already having this question, it means the process is working. Because when you walk into week 2 with this question in your mind, every single thing that comes to you, it will land better also, right? Because it's just a better learning process. When you are asking the question instead of me just dumping content on you, right? That's where the learning, the retention remains faster, stronger, and faster, I think. So that's what the week 2 is about. Let's see. And week 3 is, so week 1 is identifying the things that are holding us back. Week 2 is about how do we consciously re-engineer, right? And week 3 is about how does this turn into a practice for yourself? Because the idea after 21 days, we want to let you go and just see you once every 6 months, maybe, in the physical events in India, right? But my intention is that you come, you experience this, and just share if something meaningful happens in 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 months. There are some stories that we've already heard of synchronicities. You practice something once and then suddenly things start to show up. It's hard to start, marketing that. It's hard to put it on our website saying, hey guys, these are the things that you will start experiencing. You will start experiencing magic. But the reality is it will start happening, right? If you've gone through this process, if you have done the week 1 process already strongly, I would encourage you to pay attention to the synchronicities that start to show up. Just pay attention, right? In the next 2 weeks itself, pay attention to the synchronicities start to show up. Some, like 2 people on this group, they received a phone call from someone that they forgave. It's not uncommon, right? There's a lot of people who also, like, I studied with Vishen a lot, right? And I'm very close friends with him. And Vishen has also had hundreds of, thousands of stories of every time we practice something like this, synchronicities start to show up. Even with him, it still happens to this day, right? So it's not uncommon. Hard to describe it, especially from a left brain scientific oriented mind, but if you go take the spiritual route, right, it's very easy. It's inevitable, right? When you become like a clean vessel of energy so that the life force can flow through you, it's inevitable. Let's see. I will check back the comments in a bit, otherwise I get lost in them. Let's see. Yeah. So I think this was Ronak who also mentioned about, how do I recover from a bad relationship incident, right? There's something that happened in the past to me, right? And I'm still not able to get over it, right? First thing, take radical accountability, right? It's not the other person. We already talked about it. It's ourselves. What can I release within myself, right? How can someone's behavior of doing something themselves, right? Doing something themselves can influence me so deeply that I carry for like a year, right? When that is happening, there's some meaning that I've given, like, I think the example that was expressed was, I felt cheated, not like cheated on, but like I felt cheated or I felt tricked in certain way, right? And why would you feel cheated because of somebody else's behavior? Going internal, why do I feel not worthy of loyalty? If you felt cheated, why do you feel not worthy of loyalty? Go inside and see, where did I give this belief to myself that I'm unworthy of loyalty, right? Because when that happens, it's not happening in just one relationship. Chances are it's happening everywhere, right? And it will show up again and again until it is released internally, right? And then the next thing is take full accountability towards it and then speak your truth. the only place that we can speak our truth from is not that, hey, it's not a trick to how do I manipulatively express, or how do I learn communication tactics, which are useful, by the way. But how do I use, the main premise is not how do I use effective communication or NLP to communicate to my partner so that they can change behavior. Speaking our truth is about, once we take full accountability towards it ourselves and we just express our truth, we are honoring ourselves and the other person. This becomes interesting, but you would notice if someone is coming to you and expressing something from a place of blame, or if someone is coming to you and expressing their truth, there's a difference, and you understand it at an energetic level, right? Because our words is just, I don't know how many of you know, words that we use is just 7% of the communication that we express. Another, I think 43% is your tone of voice. Another 55%, I hope it adds up to 100, otherwise close to something like that, is your posture, your energy that you're emulating, right? So only 7% is through words, but you feel it. But you feel it when somebody is expressing the truth or somebody's blaming, right? So we need to have the ability to speak our truth, right? And this is, I think there's this cool story that I learned from Jack Cornfield, where they talk about Buddhism quite a bit. And there's a story about, Buddha sitting under a tree and just relaxing, and he eats the fruit from that tree, and it's a poisonous fruit, right? So he gets super sick, deathly sick. And the villagers from around, they come, they heal him, and they are thinking about cutting the tree off, right? And just taking it off because this is such a poisonous tree, right? But then the Buddhist philosophy of, honoring the other person and yourself, they acknowledge, hey, that's their role. That's the role of that entity in my being. Nothing happens by accident. Take the spiritual route here. Nothing happens by accident, right? So what they did is, instead of chopping down the tree, they built a boundary around it, right? It's to honor whatever gift they bring to the world without cutting them. But also, I don't have to, if somebody is so toxic, every time I speak to them, it feels like I am hitting my head on the wall. It's also, I have to honor myself and not keep on hitting my head on the wall, right? So this is where you build boundaries, right? This is where you say, hey, this is who I am. This is what I want, right? And I would love that if this could happen between us. But if you come from a place of truth, oftentimes nobody's inherently bad. Oftentimes things get reconciled because the things that are being exchanged are not really the truth of what the problem is, right? The problem is something deeper. So when you are coming from a place of truth, the other person is also, because they have to match your energy, they also come more towards coming from a place of truth. So honoring them as well and honoring yourself. So build boundaries and come from a place of radical self-accountability and truth. So I think that's the only way I see it. If there's a detailed follow-up question, you can put it in the chat, and maybe towards the end of the call, we'll come back to it. I think Charu mentioned that there's some resistance with affirmations, right? I'm trying, how do I reconcile, I think you mentioned, how do I reconcile law of attraction with affirmations? And somebody else also mentioned, hey, I feel like I'm faking it, right? I feel like I'm trying to put affirmations and I'm faking it. It is true, right? When you're a smoker for 9 years and the next day you say, I'm not a smoker, you're faking it. I know how it feels, right? I know internally how it feels. It's hard to say that, no, this is my self-image now, right? But and also we'll be expressing a lot of tools here that you have to pick what speaks to you best or not. My intention is to tell you, if it works, this is why it works. If you want to program your subconscious mind, it's way more productive to start your day with affirmations that you have control over, what you want to expose your subconscious mind to. Because remember, when we are waking up, we are naturally in the brainwave state of alpha. Right? We didn't do anything. When you wake up, that's why it's the best time to meditate, is because we are waking up from a deep, restful state, and we are transitioning from delta, theta, and then alpha, and then into beta, which is the active brainwave frequency that we are engaged with right now, right? So we are making that transition. So when you're waking up, your brain, your subconscious mind is highly suggestible. This is why starting your day with social media or your emails that you have no control over is terrible. It may be nice. There are days when you wake up on social media and you're just receiving just tons of love and your day goes super well, right? But they're also, because social media algorithms are designed to keep you addicted. And what gets us addicted is negative news. Yeah, that's just human beings. That's the human animal, we are way more likely to click and study and go deeper into things that have some sort of, loss, because we are loss averse beings. So we pay more attention to what's negative than what's positive. Right? So if you're starting our day with positive affirmation, the reason that it works is that it programs your subconscious mind to start looking at the positive direction that you might want to move towards. But it would not work if it's not in tandem with you practicing forgiveness or the tools that we talk about in week 2. I think tomorrow is a super interesting day that also up levels the idea of affirmation. So it's super, super, super interesting. But the idea behind affirmations, if it feels like, you're pretending, great. You need to get over that feeling. Anytime we try to change any behavior, we need to pass through that resistance, right? And resistance. Somebody else also mentioned the idea of resistance. I'm forgetting the name, but he said, hey, somebody said, I bought the program, but I'm still feeling a lot of resistance. If you're in the screen, just raise your hand so I know. Or if you bought the program, Sabrina, I bought the program and I'm still feeling resistance. Amazing, right? Resistance, there's 2 ways to look at it. First, resistance can be an excellent teacher. It tells us what's important to us, right? Because if this program wasn't important to you, you wouldn't be attracted towards it, right? You wouldn't be here, right? And the resistance is because our brain likes things which are familiar. And the older we get, the harder it is to change our behavior, right? So because the brain likes things that are familiar, even though they're toxic to us, right? Even though eating junk food all the time or smoking all the time is terrible, but because it's become a habit, it's familiar, it's hard to change, right? So every time resistance is showing up, it's trying to tell us that this is something important to you. Because if it isn't important, you wouldn't experience the resistance, you just wouldn't be here. We've also enrolled in scenarios of programs, degrees, where we buy, there's no resistance. I had no resistance failing in my engineering university, 0. Right? It wasn't meaningful to me, right? So every time resistance shows up, it's only showing up because the pursuit that you're on, it is meaningful to you, right? So that's a good news. However, resistance is it's terrible. I think one of the most amazing books, and you can take a spiritual view on resistance, the way it shows up, it's called The War of Art. It's a book that you can finish in a day. But if you haven't heard of this book, it will change your life. It's unbelievable. It's by Stephen Pressfield. I think it's 130, 140 pages. One of the very few books I've read more than once. And the guy expresses resistance in the most beautiful way, right? So you need to pay attention to the way it is showing up. And week 2 is about how do we, bypass resistance? How do we engineer our behavior and our practices? Because we know these practices are good. Just like we all know, every single person, overweight or not, we know that if you are trying to lose weight, everybody knows, eat more fresh greens and fruits, right? Drink more water, remove processed food. Everybody knows. Go for a jog once in a while, right? But we don't do it, right? So that's the resistance, right? Sometimes resistance can be overpowering, right? It's not that we don't know the solution. Yeah, even a lot of things that I am talking about and I will be talking about in the next 2 weeks, you would know them, right? But the idea is, how do we change our behavior, right? And I wish habit formation was a sexier topic, right? Because that's the real juice, right? How do we develop a consistent behavior? But the reason why we learned about our subconscious mind in week 1, and we didn't talk about habits in week 1, is because for us to understand that a subconscious mind is habitual, then you have a higher incentive to build constructive habits, right? Because the game becomes, okay, if I want to influence my subconscious mind, one of the ways you can influence it is through habits, right? There's other ways that we'll explore, but one of the ways is through habits, right? So if you are experiencing resistance, great, but you have to be mindful and call it out. If you feel resistant, you say, you know what, maybe I'll do it the next day. Maybe I'll just, I'll give it some time. Maybe I need to go for a walk, clear my mind. And the reason why I know this is because I was like that as well, right? And I believe to a degree, every single person is. Sometimes we'll start something and then we won't finish. Here, the mindset that would be useful is that every time you fall off the wagon, it's fine, as long as the next day you come back. What we need to understand is that it's significantly way more useful to show up with 70% of the energy every single day than showing up with high intensity, 100% of the energy, crushing everything sometimes, right? It's exponentially more meaningful. Even if that means you're having the worst days ever, and if you just have 120 seconds on the commute to the office, still using that 120 seconds for your practice. What that does is it tells your hippocampi, hey, this is the process that's important to me, right? This is the process that is important to me. This is something that I want to do every single day. And over time, slowly and slowly, it depends whichever school of thought you follow about habits, between 21 to 90 days. Between 21 to 90 days, it will start to become a part of who you are. But it takes that much time, right? So if you're falling off the wagon, don't be like, okay, one day it's terrible, second day you binge eat, third day you're like angry with everyone, and then you just forget about the program because you feel too guilty already, right? So instead, you do one day, you fall off the wagon, you binge eat, you go crazy, that's fine. Next day you say, okay, I will start from zero again. And then find humor in that, because it's not only one person, but everybody experiences in some shape or form, right? Myself included. Right? Is there anyone who doesn't experience this? I would like to just know if there's anyone who doesn't experience this. Monica, okay. You understood my question wrong. Okay. That was a trick question, guys. You weren't supposed to raise your hand. Let me see from the forms. Sharmila asked, how relevant is healing through forgiveness relevant to overcoming health issues prevalent in happening in someone's life already? Extremely. Based on the research that I have exposed myself to, extremely. And if you and this, we'll keep this answer short. Get the book Biology of Belief. You'll understand, like, most of the diseases that we create. Look at the world that we live in today. Most of the diseases have been created by our mind, right? And we're going progressively towards that direction, right? If your brain keeps on saying you're unworthy of being here, your body starts to follow, right? So they're very, very closely connected. And there's this book, and also with, like, if you want to understand the process of forgiveness or psychology with overall well-being, I think the most incredible book that I've ever found on, name of the book again, the name of this book, Biology of Belief. I talked about it on day 5, Esther. It's by Bruce Lipton. And I forgot what is the other book that I was going to talk about. Yes. So about mental fitness, mental health, and not just from a standpoint of, depression, how do we heal depression? But understanding depression, anxiety, it's like the fire alarm in the house, right? It's if the fire alarm rings in the house, you don't just go and try to fix the fire alarm, turn it off or break it down like Phoebe did in Friends. I don't know if you know that, right? But the idea is to not try to turn off the fire alarm. And the problem is not the fire alarm, the problem is the fire in the house, right? And oftentimes the narrative around mental health or depression or anxiety has become, oh, take some more pills, or let's talk about your past over and over again, right? But there's your biology influences it, your psychology influences it, the kind of, like, how much sunlight you get every single day deeply influences your mental fitness, right? So that book, The Lost Connections by Johann Hari, if you look up The Lost Connections, you'll find it. It's the most comprehensive literature, which is not boring. If you guys are interested, even as non-professionals, you would really, really enjoy it. Can I elaborate on everything that happens in this world happens out of love? Yeah. So don't need to elaborate. I don't think I need to elaborate much, but even if there's this girl called Dia Khan. I don't know if you've heard of Simon Sinek, but he's one of the coolest leadership teachers I know. Right? And so he just recently started a podcast, and he interviewed this woman called Dia Khan. Right? And Dia Khan is a Muslim woman who created the most outrageous documentaries. One where she went into the white supremacist rally, where like they are like almost like the Nazis, like they want to kill everybody who's not pure race. Right? She joined their rally as a brown Muslim woman to try to understand them better, and she did the same with ISIS. Right? And even though she doesn't subscribe to the same belief systems, what she found is that they're not doing it out of hate at all. The reason why they do it is out of love. And it's just the love that we don't understand yet, right? And it's the same thing. Vishen talks about hate people, hurt people, right? If we are hurt inside, that's what causes hurt on the other person. Sometimes it's hard to acknowledge, especially when we are way too close to the experience that has been hurtful. And some people have had extremely traumatic experiences. But if you just take a spiritual lens to it, it's also the source of your biggest gift. Maybe you haven't unpacked it completely, but that's what it is, right? But this is the writers call it the concept of dark teachers, right? If you're trying to be a writer or an author, one of the exercises they give you is to write about your dark teachers. Dark teachers are people who've done absolutely terrible things to you because of whom you are who you are, right? So for us, this is what I think I already spoke about it on day 5, to find gratitude for the experiences that we had in our past. Until we find that forgiveness only emerges if we can truly find gratitude in our biggest pains, right? And not to me, not to anybody else, but just to yourself. And you will know it the moment you can truly feel grateful for the experiences that have been given to you, and just pure gratitude. That's from that moment on, things would be different, right? Even if you would not feel it in your external reality, but you would know. I don't know if you've had that experience. It's just match. You know it in your being that from this moment on, things would be different, right? And it's a subjective moment, very hard to express, right? This happens in moments of transformation, and I believe every single person has had at least one moment of transformation in our life. Nothing changes outside, but within us, we know that from this moment on, things would be different. Let me see, Parth. I can't see your chat completely. What was the book Gautam mentioned after Biology of Belief? The Lost Connections by Johann Hari. Okay, let's go to the next question. Someone put it anonymously. How do we crush our goals? As like, I want my family and friends to know me all over again, like Vishen said. So Vishen, this is one of quotes from Vishen: grow so fast. I'm not sure if it is from Vishen or if it's from Tom Bilyeu, but Vishen says it as well. Like, it says, grow so fast that your friends get to know you all over again every 6 months, right? How do you crush your goals? I'm stuck taking any beliefs. Sirisha, you'll have to explain that a bit more while I finish this point. Please. What was I saying? Yeah. How do you crush your goals so that your friends, that you're growing so fast that your friends have to get to know you all over again? I think that's the wrong goal. It's the goal. The light is not on your friends want. This is the byproduct, that your friends would want to get to know you all over again, right? If you're just chasing that, it would your brain, because whatever goal you set, your brain takes you there, right? You might become an absolute terrible person, and they'll have to get to know you all over again, maybe, right? But the idea is we need to have growth as a goal in and of itself. And this is where this is the distinction between, like, this is the thing that we want to hold as a fundamental pillar with Life Plugin. Life Plugin is not people who are, especially the ones who attended our physical events, they know the difference between personal growth and personal knowledge. And they also know the difference between personal growth as a lifestyle versus personal growth as a quick fix. Personal growth as a lifestyle is growth as a goal. But it's not about that, I have my relationship is absolutely terrible, and that's why I need to find a relationship therapist. I have a beach vacation coming up, so I need to find a fitness program, right? Or I'm absolutely depressed, so I need to find some tools or tactics. Or I'm stressed at work, so I need to learn how to meditate now. That's a quick fix mentality, right? And again, this is from Jim Rohn, who says that your level of professional success seldom exceeds your level of personal development. Right? Because whatever success means to you, you attract that by being the person that is worthy of that success. And what you will start finding, these synchronicities, these celebratory worthy moments that we've collected so far, and we'll collect them every single time we do it, is that the more we work on our internal reality, our external reality starts to shift, right? And it won't happen immediately. But if the focus is always external, it wouldn't happen, right? This is, the more we work on an internal reality, sometime along the way, people would come up to you and say, hey, what changed? Can you tell me what changed? Right? What did you change? And that shouldn't be the goal. The goal is, our job is to make the most of this roller coaster ride that we are on. Right? And then if people who are on the same path, they will come and join us. And a lot of people will also fall off, right? It doesn't give us the right to be an asshole to them and, say, or like confuse speaking our truth to saying, whatever we want. right? Just, hey, I'm in the name of speaking my truth, you're an asshole, you need to go away, right? We need to just be mindful of that, right? And our job is to just make the most of this journey that we are on. And the people who are on the same path, they will stay there. And sometimes you might separate and then they will come back again. And the people who, I don't know, every single person that I know for sure who've grown dramatically, at some point, they were separated from the people, existing people in their life, and then they find their way back. Because if the love is real, you will always find your way back. But sometimes you have to pass through that door alone, right? And if the intention is to carry every single person, it's not ideal, because what Lisa Nichols says is she says, like, if this is a cup and this is your saucer, you're filling, there's a bit of love or energy that you give, and you don't serve people from your cup, you serve people from your saucer, right? So your cup needs to be full completely. So if your cup is always empty and you're operating from a place of self-sacrifice, it's fine. Like, the Indian family guilt, it's very strong, right? It keeps us together. It starts with "Are beta," right? And then it goes something along that line, and it's strong, right? But if we stay in that zone, I think we are also doing disservice to the other person, right? We're doing disservice because we're finding comfort and putting the blame on them. Oh, because my dad said that, so I need to do that, right? We're trying to hide behind in that and not trying to show up and take full accountability for the things that we want to accomplish, right? And then a few years later, when they come, it's not just grow so fast and they have to get to know you all over again. When they meet you after a few years, like before you were just normal friends, after when they meet you, they're the most proud to ever have met you in their life. That's an interesting goal as well, right? To every single person that has passed your life, they should just feel, wow, I'm so proud I met this person, I knew this person, right? So that could also be an interesting goal. But our goal needs to be, we need to be in love with our own learning and growth, right? So this is again a means goal to an end. This becomes a nice byproduct, and there's a lot of nice byproducts that will show up, right? But it's like, try to live this philosophy: want everything but need nothing, right? So we don't need those validations, but if they happen, we'll enjoy them. Let's see. Yes, Sirisha, excellent question. Will it make us messy during the transformation, like getting more angry, for example? Guys, I can see all your faces. Yes, with a nod or a no. Can you answer this question? Does the process of transformation messy or not? Okay. So Sirisha, I think you have your answer. But it's like, if you're asking a question, hey, I want to go to the gym, but I don't want to hurt my muscles a bit. Right? Your muscles don't grow if you don't break them. You're literally breaking your muscles in the gym, right? And only then they grow stronger. And the process of transformation is, I think Parth shared that that picture with the caterpillar going into the cocoon, right? And you go into a place of darkness. Is that pleasant? It doesn't seem like it to me, right? And often the process of transformation is like that, right? So yeah, I can go into a spiritual, philosophical tangent quite well on it, but maybe we'll reserve it for the closing parties at Life Plugin, which is where it's the most fun. So Parth asked a question: how can I go deeper in the patterns and beliefs I've uncovered, as I feel there's a lot more to it, and I've just started uncovering it? Perfect. The answer is repetition, right? The more times you do it, right? If we are the subjective experiencer of what's happening inside, and if you feel that there's something there, right? It's just to put that light there for long enough so that whatever monster we thought it was, we see it for what it really is, right? So if you still feel there are things that need to be let go of, then we get back to it every single day. It's just like addiction, right? We're addicted to an old pattern behavior. And the more times we bring our conscious awareness to it, even if, for some people, it's hard to gauge in the first time they do this program, first time they get exposed to an exercise like that, it's harder. It's not impossible for sure, but for some people, the resistance is harder, so you don't know exactly if that is the event or a few events that influence your thinking for so long, right? But the moment you got curious that, I know that there is an experience that I gave this meaning to that is holding me back. The moment you have that awareness, it will close. That moment, that loop will close. at some point. If it doesn't close even in one session, just it takes repetition. Right? It's an addiction that we had to an old pattern, and that's the best I could answer, unless we go one-to-one. And this is where having conversation with people that friends that are there to push you to grow, having that one-to-one conversation, customized conversation, where could it come from, is very helpful. 1 second. Okay, so Pathik's question again was, how do we have this long term? So I already answered that. Okay. This was also a really good question actually from Parth, and a really brave one. It said that for some struggles, while I'm unable to see the negative impact of them, I'm able to see the negative impact of some struggles, but I'm not sure to be able to get to the root of them. We just answered that. But something like a bad habit, or where I see others' failure sometimes and I get happy about it. I know it's not good. I correct myself always, and I know it's some old conditioning in the past. Right? How do you go deeper in it? Firstly, is that we need to understand, where does it come from? We need to take full accountability towards it. Right? That's a super. You went super deep, so I'm very happy, man. What we need to understand is, and to different degrees, I've felt that in my own life. I don't know if you guys have to a different degree. When when we are in a low state ourselves, when other people are getting in a low state, it feels comfortable. It feels like I'm not alone, right? It feels safer, and that's why we put it on others that there's stay away from people that bring you down, and only stay with people that uplift you. But the reality is, if only there was a measuring stick that can remove all the people who are toxic and just keep all the pure population, we'll be fine. All right, but that line that divides the good and the toxicity passes through every single one of them, every single one of us, right? So what we need to understand is, okay, so if that is happening, what is the failure that I've experienced that I haven't completely reconciled, right? And it's significant. And what we need to understand is, what is failure? Failure is just a judgment to an experience. It's all that is. Failure is your particular judgment to an experience that you had, which was what it was, right? And it's quite an ego trip that we all go through, myself included, to think that this is called failure. Like the whole universe is supposed to run around me like it's meant for me, like I'm the center of the universe. There things happen, right? And then the way there's many things why we are so narrowed, right? And lost connection. That book actually really helps with that. And we're so into our own heads that think that every tiny thing that we go through and we give a strong judgment to it, right? It's only a matter of perspective. People go through really horrendous things every single day, right? And the moment we have that perspective, that judgment can easily dissolve. But because from our past experiences, we've experienced a failure, right? The judgment is so strong that we carry it unconscious. Once it goes in your subconscious, it doesn't get questioned. That is the problem. But the moment we bring light to it, right? And when I work one-on-one with someone, I'll ask them, okay, I think there was one guy from last batch, and we were having this conversation. Can't name him, can't name his wife, but they were having a conversation that she always does this, and I went through this, this thing in my own life, and it was, I did it, I grew from it, and I came here, right? And she's going through she's going into the same behaviors and so on and so forth. So I don't like it. I said, why do you not like it? Why do you have judgment towards it? Right? She can be who she wants to be. Like, yeah, because I went through it myself 10 years ago. I said, okay, so do you think that was bad? He said, yes. I said, ooh, why? Why was that bad? He said, yeah, because that's not how it's supposed to be. And then you ask, are you happy where you are now? Right? Are you grateful for where you are now? I say, yes. So every single experience that has built us up to the moment where we are led now, if you're at peace, then you have to be at peace with every single thing that happened in the past, right? Because if that experience had not happened, would you be here? It's impossible for someone to say yes, right? If there's any experience that you've had in the past, if that had not happened, you wouldn't be here where you are, right? So everything that was supposed to happen, happened. That's exactly how it was supposed to be. How I know that? Because that's how it did happen, right? And this is where think Peter Crone is a cool guy to follow around this philosophy. He talks about the vocabulary that you use, and he catches that super well, right? So be mindful of the vocabulary that we're using, and oftentimes our vocabulary leaves clues, right? And in our vocabulary, we can, if there's someone who's reflecting that as a mirror, there's the only place one-to-one coaching works, because when someone is reflecting a behavior back to you, when we're trying to just assess ourselves all the time, it's difficult, right? It's difficult to see ourselves, what are the things that we're doing wrong. And this is where somebody else can reflect our behavior back or say, hey, you said that word. Why is that judgment coming from, right? So if, the answer is that if we are feeling on other people's, if we get a bit of comfort from other people's failure, it's normal, right? Because it makes us feel less alone. But what we need to see is that what part of my experience from the past that I label as failure that I haven't let go of, right? Because otherwise it will keep on showing up in our life again and again until we release it. Right? We need to find, like, how was that the best thing that ever happened to me? Right? If you just ask that question, this is a cool trick for your brain, right? Whatever question you ask, you get exactly that answer, right? Whatever question, why am I shitty? You'll get, often chances it's easier list to make, right? And whichever question you ask, the more you start going into the habit of asking that question, you will get the exact same answer. So if you ask, how is this shitty situation the best thing that ever happened to me? If it has to be, how will it be? Right? This is what Eric Edmeades called the hindsight window. It's a cool 18-minute talk on YouTube. It'll blow your mind. He's hands down the best speaker, one of the top 3 speakers I know in the world. Right? So he talks about the hindsight window. Hindsight window is that there's some event that happens now, like there's some event that happened to you in the past that you thought was absolutely terrible, right? And tell me if you've had that. There's like a breakup, or you say, hey, you're fired, right? Go away from here, right? Or someone treats you really poorly in public, like a public humiliation. There's like a really painful experience in the past, but after a few months or years, it feels like, I'm so grateful that happened to me. Right? It's like the best thing that happened to me, otherwise I would not be here. Right? It's that window between the moment that happens to the moment you see it as a symphony, or as the biggest blessing of your life, and you thank the universe saying, thank you so much for not listening to me, and I promise I will not do this again, and we do it again, which is a different story. But that window, that's the hindsight window. So if we are looking at the failure from the past that we haven't let go of, or even when we experience something painful right now, it's an interesting perspective to think about it. If this has to be a learning experience, or if this has to be one of the best things that's ever happened to me, how might that be? Right? And the moment you ask that question, your brain will start delivering answers to that specific question. Right? So it's a shift in the frame. I'm just going to check the chat quickly before I lose my voice completely, and we'll close this call. Shweta asks, how do I know that I've truly forgiven the person who was responsible to the program, to those, like, was responsible for my consistent struggles, right? You will know it when that struggle would not exist. That's a clear no, right? But the first time you know it in your being. Right? Something lifted. And you look at the chat and look at some of the people what they said. The first batch, someone said, I'm out of the prison after 43 years. That's how you know at least you've started the process, right? And it's subjective to every single person. But really, you don't need to forgive the other person. You just need to let go of that experience and not have judgment towards it, right? Because that judgment is the only thing that is holding you there, right? If to keep someone down, you need to stay down with them, right? Is to just let that go and just focus that, believe that this is how it was supposed to happen. Maybe if you are inclined towards spirituality, find spiritual meaning behind it, right? If Viktor Frankl can find meaning in going to Auschwitz, while his book completely complete, right? He was a psychotherapist and he wrote the book, The Man's Search for Meaning. He talks about finding meaning in our suffering. Just find what gift that suffering was supposed to give you. The moment you recognize that there's a gift, that's when you know that it's not about forgiving the person, it's the process of forgiveness, right? It's the process of forgiveness is to honor ourselves. It's not for the other person. Right, so that is the subjective answer to that subjective question. Okay. So, a few things during the process make me anxious. I can consciously say to myself, it's okay, but the experience itself is overwhelming. Great. Perfect. The idea is that the moment you say, I will sit with it until I fall in love with it, and you sit with that intention, it will dissolve. Yeah, anything that we run away from, it stays, it tries to chase us. And this is something I learned with a hard therapy in November, but this shifted permanently for me. Everything that I still have resistance towards, instead of running away from it, just walk towards it, right? And not as a sadistic person trying to give myself pain, but genuinely believing that having a spiritual lens towards it and say, okay, I will sit with it until I fall in love with it. And one of the tools that you can use is deep breathing, right? If you're sitting with it, sitting with that experience, and something is making you, it's making it overwhelming, there are different breathing techniques that you can use, right? And we talk about breathing techniques on day 17. We talk about it throughout the program, but day 17, there's like a in-depth, like a breathing exercise that we do, right? So sit with it and then breathe through it, right? So if it's overwhelming, it's trying to surface. So, okay, what will you do? Let's bring it. What's the worst that will happen? What's the worst that can happen with an overwhelm? Heart attack, you can die, possibly, right? But that's the extreme case. If you're likely for that to happen, don't take my advice, please, and we will not send you this recording. But if that's not the case, the worst that can happen is you'll see your demons, and that's it. You get to see your demons. There's a cool Tim Ferriss posted, I don't think it's his, but he posted it on his Instagram, like a badge that says, sometimes I wrestle with my demons, sometimes we just snuggle. Right? So if you are coming face to face with your demons, no problem, just stay there. The worst that can happen is you'll just be a bit afraid. But every single time you do it, the thing is, it becomes less and less scary. Right? The first time takes a huge leap of faith because it seems too big, right? But that's why it's only the first time that you need faith. Every subsequent time you have experience, right? By now you already have experience of also facing your demons, and which is what we'll talk about it in day 8 tomorrow, right? We already have experience about every single thing that we're trying to change in our life, trying to make positively better in our life. We've done that in the past. Our brain just hasn't registered it yet because it's not part of your self-image. Right? What we want to do is change your self-image that you can say, myself, I am someone who can sit with their demons and fall in love with it. Right? Panache calls it, enlightenment is your soul giving your ego a hug. Right? Ego is not a terrible thing. You don't have to kill your ego. Right? It's just if your ego is like a baby who needs attention, it's okay, just give it. No problem. It should be in the car. It should just not drive the car. Right? Ego is super important for us to accomplish. Every single thing that we want is coming from a place of ego, not in a negative way, but it's coming from a sense of self, right? So ego is an amazing tool to have when we're going for self-transformation, right? But it just shouldn't decide every single thing that we do in our life from that place. So I hope that answers that question. I keep going back to the decisions and moments when I took those decisions, and I keep feeling that I'm not living up to my abilities. Is this what was supposed to happen? Why do I feel this way? I don't know. But if you feel that there are certain repeated behaviors that are not serving you, this is perfect. Maybe there's instead of like, there's a lot of judgment towards yourself that I keep on doing the same thing. I'm an addict. Great. Find why you do that. Where does that come from? Right? And first, it starts from self-compassion. You have to be gentle with yourself. You have to understand you're not the only one, Ankit. You're not the only one on this planet that does this, right? It's like some form of saying that, hey, I keep on engaging myself into destructive behaviors. You think that's you're the only uniquely gifted person who does that? No, right? So what we need to do is sit with it. Why am I making those decisions? If they're not serving me, go back to the process. What is it that serves you? Because oftentimes what we say is, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this, I don't want this. And we say it 100 times, and we don't really specifically say what we do want. Right? So this is why on day 2, we said, okay, let's set some worthy goals, which are the things that we clearly want, right? Without any means. This is my end game. And once you know that end game, start walking towards it. and this is how it has happened so far, great. You don't need to carry it anymore. You can choose to carry the same judgment that you keep on making bad decisions. That's a bad belief to have. I keep on making bad decisions again and again is a bad belief to have. And if you, this is a common phrase, you say, when you argue for your limitations, you get to keep them. Right? So when you're always saying, I keep on doing this, I keep on doing this, yes, you win. Right? You can stop doing it. Right? But what we need to do is go deeper into saying, where does that come from? Right? And what are the things which are meaningful to me? And then, which is what next week is designed for, you commit to yourself, this is non-negotiable for me. That's it. Now, from this moment on, I put full clarity as to this is my goal, and now this is non-negotiable to me. So not just skill-wise. If it means for fitness, I recently posted, my before after of the fitness journey. What's the most fascinating thing for me was not to how I got to like 6-pack abs, but the kind of mindset that I needed to shift, because I hit a wall. It was a 6-month program. I hit a wall like 7 weeks before I couldn't pass through. Right? My training volume was exactly the same. I was like to the point, to the T, I was following every single thing, but something or the other was holding me back. Repeated struggle, right? And I said, okay, I'm gonna use the same philosophy that we teach, which I didn't before. So I said, okay, now I'm gonna not just use my skills and my training and my time for just physical fitness, but I also want to change my self-image, right? So, and that's when I realized, oh, I was fat shamed at school a bit, or around that time. And I've been still holding to that self-image. So it's harder, because I would enjoy, every time I would break my fitness routine, or I would binge eat, I would enjoy, I would make fun of it. Like, we did this, so it would make me feel comfortable, right? I had these old patterns that I needed to change, right? So the moment you say this is non-negotiable, it's a game over. And it's not about, my brother would say, yeah, Gautam, I know that. I tried everything. I know about gratitude or forgiveness or these things. I've tried that. I know it works for other people. I know the studies too. I know everything, but it doesn't work for me. And that is a bad mindset to have, especially because I told Devansh, Devansh, if you know every single thing there is to know about solving this problem, and you're still unable to solve this problem, that doesn't sit right with me. Right? If you know every single thing that is supposed to work, and then you know that it does work for other people and it doesn't work for me, then you don't have to do it and say I tried it. You do it until it's done. Right? And this is the conversation that you can only have with yourself. I know it's possible. Take the scientific data, take other people's case studies, take other people's proof. Once you believe that it is possible, so you need to believe it that it's possible. Once you believe it's possible, you do it until it's done. And there's nothing wrong. Right? There could be, my bone density is too weak, or my genes are not ideal to change my body structure. All of those thoughts I've had in my own mind. Right? Our mind is evil, super smart. And the smarter you get, the smarter your ego gets as well. Right? So the smarter you can trick yourself. Right? So careful. The more smart you become, the more smart your ego also becomes. Right? So if the idea is that something works, but you just do it until it's done. Right? And have compassion for yourself. You fall off the wagon, come back to it. Right? That's it. That's all you need to do. You fall off, shake it off, come back to it, because the power is in the process. Right? We are what we repeatedly do. So don't have judgment towards it. And when judgment shows up, get excited. Oh, where does that judgment come from? Why am I judging myself on this right now? And then go back, find what is the source of the judgment, and then release that. And the more you do it, the easier it becomes. Okay. Do we have a lot of self-awareness elements interplay throughout the process, from unconscious incompetence to conscious competence? I'm not, Sandeep, can you reword it so I can understand it better? I'll look at the other question until the time. Sydney, do I write affirmations daily? If it speaks to you, yes. Right? If it doesn't speak to you, you can discard it. Right? If it speaks to you, you can do EFT tapping also in front of the mirror. Right? So there's enough tools. But if this is useful, reprogramming tools of the mind, reprogramming, the analogy of the garden, tending the garden, you uproot the weeds, which is, you don't have to do it consistently, but consciously engineering the right beliefs that you want to have in alignment with your ideal self-image, those things need to be done consistently. So by the end of this program, when the program finishes, the practice that you will leave with is something that you do daily. So if affirmation is something that speaks to you, then yes, you do it daily. Right? You do it daily enough so that it becomes a part of who you are. Yeah, we need to, so Sandeep is asking, I mean, we need to build a lot of self-awareness within ourselves to make it a default system, to look at things as they are and not fight it back each time. Yes, we need to have a lot of self-awareness, but what we need to understand is our brain likes to be unconscious. We want to operate from things on automation. That's what the human animal is designed to do, right? We are all running on automation 95 to 99% of the times, right? But we need to bring self-awareness when we are facing struggles, when we're trying to get somewhere and we are unable to, right? Because the unconscious behaviors are holding us back. Only in those moments, if we can't be always conscious, can't be always self-aware. That's not what we are designed to be, right? And not in the materialistic, dualistic world, right? So what we need is every time we're facing a repeated struggle, when we experience that, that's when we need to bring consciousness to it, right? That's when, you know, the concept of triggers or the concept of struggles, what we need to see it as detach the struggle or the judgment from who you are. Because when we are attached to the struggle or the judgment, it brings a lot of shame. Shame is the lowest frequency of energy. If you want to make a change, you need to go up. I don't know if you know the Dr. Hopkins, I want to say, the map of consciousness. Shame is the energy, is the emotion that has the lowest electromagnetic frequency, right? So if you want to make change, right, if you're operating from shame, if you're too attached to the struggle that is happening, you know, so some people would send private messages thinking, oh, I'm the only one who feels that way, right? Which is not true. It's just, there's too much shame attached to it. So you need to detach the shame, understand, it's a skill, right? This is a skill, like everything else, even same with relationships, which we'll talk probably next call. But, you know, like everything else, it's a skill, right? It's a skill. This is something pops up, that's a problem to be solved. You can, the moment you look at it, this is a problem to be solved, and it is solvable, you detach yourself from the problem, right? So then you become an observer from it. So you need to develop that much level of self-awareness, and that's what we are designed to do. This is this conversation and the content in the program is designed to bring your awareness to your struggles, because we're all aware of struggles, but we don't know what that means or what that could point to. So in this program, we are pointing from your attaching awareness towards your limiting beliefs or your poor self-image already with something that which is there in your awareness, so that your awareness can be extended to, okay, this is the struggle, but what I need to solve is the belief about myself in association with the struggle, right? The problem that we need to solve is not the struggle, but it's who do I need to become to solve that problem, right? That's the goal, right? It's not about accomplishing any big goals, but it's about who do I become so that this problem just disappears. Okay, guys, so I'll just take the last question. Appreciate Sydney. What if the person we need to forgive is still an integral part of our life and behaves the same, making it difficult to forgive? Deepshika, let's keep this, I think, until next week, because it's a long answer and I would love to answer it. But yeah, radical self-accountability. And oftentimes the biggest triggers come from people that are the closest to us, right? Who has the most ability to make us blow our fuses? Our spouses or boyfriend, girlfriend, mommy, papa, right? But they're the greatest growth tools for us too, right? And I think I would reserve that conversation for next week once you go to week 2. But yes, the idea is to take radical self-accountability, no matter how hard it is, right? No matter how hard it is, you have to take radical self-accountability and then speak your truth, right? If you really think there's a poisonous tree and you're the Buddha, right? You don't need to kill that tree or fix that tree and then the poison, disappears. By the way, in that story, when they put the boundary around the tree, they don't cut off the tree, and what they realize, they can make medicine from the fruit, because poison, but in small quantity, it's really beneficial, right? So there's always gifts that every single person, every single being that we encounter, they have a gift for us, right? So we need to take full accountability, and then with that place, without any judgment, we need to speak our truth. Hey, this is bothering me. I love you, I really do, and I want to make it work, right? But if this is the thing that I want, this is non-negotiable for me. So if you love me, allow me to maintain this space for me. And they say, F off, I don't love you. This is non-negotiable. In the beginning, there will be resistance, right? You also need to be patient, right? It's whatever relationship you're in, whether it's a parental relationship or a love relationship, that dynamic of who you are, your current self-image and their current self-image is perfectly aligned and fixed, right? And it's like that for a long time. And suddenly you say, hey, I want to be here. And it's like, no, 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 you come back, right? And it's normal, right? But you say, no, this is where I will be. I've decided it's non-negotiable. I still love you, but this is where I will be, right? And over time, either they go away or they meet you there, right? You can uplift the other person just by uplifting yourself. So this, the moment you take radical self-accountability, that's what starts to happen. It won't be immediate, right? It's not, hey, I've decided from today and we are done, right? And this is the mistake that we do. Well, the mistake that we do is the moment you learn this program and you get super inspired, and then you start already talking to other people saying, Parth is one person probably who's talking to his friends, and his friends wanted to join in the middle of the program, right? And it's great. You're excited, and then you want to tell your other people that you love, hey, this is the philosophy that you need to start applying in your life and up level. It's normal, right? It's normal to do that. Every time we get an inspiration, it's normal to bring it to every single person that we love. But every parent on this call knows, right? Your kids don't do what you tell them to do. They do what you do, right? So be the proof. It will take you time to become a completely different person. Right now, you're just declaring you want to be here. You're still there. Right? You're declaring you want to be here, right? So be there. Takes a bit of time to be there. Be the proof, and they will say, hey, what changed, right? Either they don't align, and they'll just, that's your partnership so far, and there's nothing wrong with that, as long as it is done from a place of love and truth. But you can only do it once you are on the other side, right? So be the proof first, right? And things will solve themselves. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, the rest I will answer. I think keep these questions, have them in your mind. The fact that there's so many more questions is perfect, because you're walking into week 2 where we'll be talking about a lot of reprogramming tools, right? We talked about letting go tools in the past. This is the one about reprogramming tools, and there's a lot more integration time this time, right? Integration time, do take it really, really seriously in this week, because the first week is hard, right? That's why there's more content, there's more engagement, and there's crazy going back and forth. Second part, reprogramming is actually easy. Simple, not easy, right? It's quite simple, right? But you have to do it consistently. So the integration time is for you to think, use your consciousness, you bring your awareness to see, how does this particular thing, every single thing that I've learned so far, fit in for me, right? And there'll be integration days in between in week 2, and pay very close attention to it, because transformation does not happen without integration. And so they're equally important, if not more, right? So even if it is like, there's some days where you say, it's integration day, I'll just chill. I don't need to do anything. It can happen, but you've already made this commitment. You've invested time, energy, money to be here. Just, if you want to give in 100%, use the integration time, right? Just bring yourself to the integration, bring your brain to that practice every single day, even if it is 5 minutes, right? So pay attention to the integration time. And that's it, guys. I hope this was useful. If there's still some questions left, let me know. Otherwise, thank you. Thank you so much. It was really good to see you guys. And I will see you next week. Bye-bye. Ciao, ciao.